In this episode of Man vs. Marriage, WTF? What the frustration? Episode 2.
The podcast.
How good do you want your life to be?
It's truly about becoming the best version of yourself that's possible.
This is Man vs. Marriage.
The podcast.
What is up, my men? Welcome back to another episode of Man vs. Marriage. It is me, the Q-Dog, and I'm glad you're here. I'm so thankful that you're listening. I got to tell you, I have had a hell of a time trying to get this episode recorded. It is so frustrating. And no, I didn't tee that up. That actually just happened, as this is like the 5th time I've started the episode. Why is it the 5th time? Here's why. Bros, I am mentally exhausted. I am mentally exhausted. There is much happening right now. And I am working hard. I am grinding. And I'm working hard for the family. I'm working hard for the family vision. Working hard for the podcast, for my wife's novel, to help my children, for us to write a book, for us to have faith discussions. And life is happening. It's happening. The grind is getting difficult. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. And I think we all have those moments. And I want to tell you, if you're going through something similar, you are not alone. You're not alone. I'm right here with you. It was never my style to kind of put out what was frustrating to me or what I was struggling with, because, as you know, in episode 37 and 38, there was a time in my life where I did not discuss those things because I felt like my problems would be too much of a burden on other people. So what I did was I continually took on everybody else's trouble. I sorted through everyone else's frustration that wanted to bring them to me. But I thought that my problems or my struggles or what I was going through was too much of a burden. Thankfully, I learned better. So that's what I'm here to talk to you about in this episode 2 of WTF. Because things are still frustrating. But what is frustration truly? You know, I have a part of my core value, one of my creeds that I live by, is that I do not want to allow circumstances in my life to dictate my attitude and how I respond to people. And generally, I'm very, very successful at it. But there are times when the grind is going so hard that mentally exhaustion kicks in. I don't catch it quick enough, and I start taking on some of the attitude that surrounds me. And I'm human. It's what happens. I think maybe it happens to many of us. So when those types of things happen, and small things start to frustrate you in a major way, it's an indicator that you've probably gone too far. You need to take a step back. You need to take a look at what's really going on. Like Jeannie and I have said in the past, when you're arguing about the dishes, it's generally not about the dishes. So keep that in mind. When little things start to frustrate you, because there are just frustrating things in life, you know, but when little things start to frustrate you in a big way, understand that for some reason, things have started to build up and you have not processed through them properly. And then what that does is it begins to compound on itself. So you get something that's frustrating. Maybe it makes you angry, but you have to move on to the next thing. And there's another frustrating situation. You have to move on to the next thing. And then there's another frustration after frustration. And maybe some of these are things that you can control, things that you want to do, things that you can affect. But then there's things in your life that you have no control over. And sometimes those can be the most frustrating things. But what happens is if you don't take the proper time when you go through a very frustrating situation to kind of decompress for a minute, to work through it, and to make sure that you're good, those things start to stack on top of each other. And your capacity to process through frustration really, really gets difficult. So think of a frustration like a piece of paper. This is an example that kind of came to me. Think of how easy it is, just a regular piece of notebook paper, to rip through one piece. Now, think about stacking 10. Put 10 on top of each other. Try to rip through them. Gets a little more difficult. Double that. Gets a little more difficult. Maybe for some of you, impossible. Double that. And pretty soon you get to a point where something that should be so easy to take care of now becomes impossible in the moment because it's piled up. Now so many pieces of paper are there that you just can't rip through them. So what you have to do is you have to start working through that paper in bite-sized pieces, if you will. You have to start to deconstruct it so you can work through it. And that's where I'm at. Because, man, I had a really, really, really frustrating moment happen today. But in the grand scheme of things, it was not so big that I shouldn't have been able to work through it. And it had to do with us setting up for recording the podcast. It's something that Jeannie and I talked about in the past, and being ready. You know, I don't want to have to chase people down. It's like being ready when it's time for that appointment to happen. But it was actually much bigger than that. So I had to write some thoughts out, and in something that I wrote, I want to share with you. It's like, frustration is a dirty drip that, if not processed correctly, will contaminate your gas tank, and dirty fuel can wreak havoc on your engine. So I want to share with you what I've had to do. And what I've had to do is kind of write down the different things that I could think of that were frustrating me that I didn't take the time to work through. It's like taking each piece of paper off the stack. Now, one thing you do, one thing that you can benefit from when you start to write that down is maybe you come to the idea that, oh crap, this wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Maybe something else was going on, or maybe it was just a moment. Maybe I just had a low moment. The other thing you can see is that you can kind of track down where the starting point was, or what was the initial piece that frustrated me so much that it's got me shut down and shut out, and so frustrated with the people around me or the situations around me. So I encourage you, if you are experiencing some frustration, whether it's professionally or relationship-wise or personally, that you take some time to write down what's going on. I don't want that to be your key focus, but what I want that to do is I want it to be an exercise in releasing those things so you can see what they are, and you don't make the practice of making a mountain out of a molehill. That's what's helped me today. That's what's helped me today to walk back what these frustrations are, really get a handle around what is going on, and then giving me a plan to move forward on them. You know, recently I listened to and watched and listened to this episode, or this motivational video on YouTube called Good from Jocko. If you look it up, Good Jocko. I'll get it in the show notes. I'm a person that thoroughly has believed no matter what the situation is, there's opportunity for growth. It's something that I preach. It's something that I impress upon the people that are in my life and that I feel like I should mentor or I want to add to their life. And Jocko had a great way of presenting that with a video and with his words. And he's got this rugged voice and the right music behind it that helps kind of that warrior inside of you, that man inside of you, that beast inside of you start to rise and say, you know what? This is not impossible. This is just a moment in time. This is not impossible. So I encourage you to go check that video out. We'll get it in the show notes, get you a link to click so you can go look at it. But some things to me that were very, very impressive that he brought out in this short video is that when things are bad, you don't have to talk about how bad they are. This is what I got from it. When things are bad, say good. Now, I've always looked at opportunities, or not always, but for this time in my life when I've started to grow and redefine me as a man, when these challenging things show up, when there's pressure, when there's uncertainty, I tend to run towards those things because I see them as a moment for me to grow, for me to test myself, for me to say, okay, what are you made of? This is where the rubber meets the road. What are you all about? Let's see where you are so you know how to challenge yourself to get better, because these things are an identifier for where you are in this life. And Jocko put it out there. He says, you know, when guys used to come to him when he was a Navy SEAL commander, and he said, we got this big problem. We got this big issue. And he would say, good. And the next time somebody was talking to him, he came back and the guy started talking to him about the problem. The guy goes, but I know what you're going to say. He said, well, what am I going to say? He said, you're going to say good. And that's totally the mindset that I have. And to hear that coming from a professional, from a man like Jocko, it just reiterated to me that it is the right mindset for success. It's the right mindset to challenge yourself. It's the right mindset for growth, that we don't shy away from the fight. We engage. And when we get knocked down, like I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I'm like, man, I am going through it. It's tough. And we love boxing. It's like every once in a while, you might have to take an 8 count. It might mean you're down for a minute, but you're not out of the fight. Compose yourself, stand up, and keep moving. And now in the words of Jocko, it's good. It's good. Good. And those are things that you can do that will help you. When you have that internal dialogue going on about what's bad, what's not good, what's not going right, why does this keep happening? Why does this keep happening? You stop there and you can say good. Because this is a moment in time where you begin to understand, even though things are absolute crap, things are garbage, I can shift my perspective and I can rise instead of retreat from the moment. I know there's areas in your life where you've decided you need to retreat. We all do it. We all do it if we're honest with ourselves. And I'm finding one of those areas now where I need to rise instead of retreat. Where I've been so mentally exhausted because of the grind at work and the responsibility at work and the difficulties at home and things that are going on around the world that the news wants to show you because they love to sensationalize things and keep you in panic and fear. It's those moments where you have to check yourself, where you have to take a step back. You say, wait a minute. This isn't me. This is not who I'm committed to be. This is not the man that I said I was going to be. And I have to make a change. I have to recalibrate. I got to reload. I have to look at what I can learn in this situation because it's going to grow me. And in the words of Jocko, you can say good. And we, the Man vs. Marriage podcast, we are here to help you. There's a lot of things that can come off as frustration. And if you allow that frustration to go unchecked, it quickly turns in to disappointment or resentment. And it can morph into anger. And then we start to get mad at the world. We start to get mad at ourselves. We start to get mad at one another. We start to get mad at the people that love us the most and only want to help us and have their own world going on. So we can't allow that dirty drip of frustration to go unchecked, to go unprocessed. We can't allow that dirty drip of frustration to contaminate the gas tank because we want to be running on pure, high-octane fuel so that our mind's right and our mind can help us move our body and accomplish those things that we are looking to do. I know what my things are that I want to accomplish. I want to be the absolute best husband that I can be. I want to be the absolute best father that I can be. The best friend that I can be. The best employee for the company that I work for. I want to be the best resource I can be for you as men when it comes to your marriage. I want to be the best husband so that my marriage can be the best that it can absolutely be. And it can grow. And I can be a support to my wife. I want to be the best husband I can be so I can have the most sex as possible. Because that's the connection that I share with my wife that I share with no one else in the world. That's why I want pure, high-octane fuel in my gas tank. My mind needs to be burning that fuel. And when it's contaminated with frustration or disappointment, or it's contaminated with anger, I'm not in a place where I can progress in being the best me that's possible. So I want to encourage you, if you're working through frustrations, if you've got frustrations and it's hard to figure them out, if you got frustrations that haven't been dealt with in years and it's turned to anger or resentment, maybe it comes from a place of disappointment. I'm here. I'm an email away. I'm just an email away. Let me know how I can help. I can relate. You have my word on that. I can relate. But I know what you are capable of. I know you're capable of growing and getting better and improving. I know that you're capable of being better than you thought you were. I know you've got the magic hidden deep inside of you, that you have the ability to overcome these things. I know it. Okay, you want to know how I know it? Because I'm a product of the hard work to get there. This is the Q Dog. Sending mad love to you, respect to you. I'm here to help. Thank you for listening. This is Man versus Marriage.
The podcast. How good do you want your life to be?
You gotta live on purpose, for a purpose.
It's truly about becoming the best version of yourself that's possible. This is Man vs. Marriage, the podcast.